Flamginzard here, back at it again, once again, and today people today, I brought you a deck tech video that it's been long overdue for this commander. Very long overdue, like years long due for me to do, and now I've got it at 100% build. The full power of this build with the foiling up version will be in the link down in the description down below. So the funny part for this is that I've been wanting to build Atraxa for a while. Which, by the way, yes, this is the commander, Atraxa, Praetor's Voice. This is alter sleeved, an alter sleeve of the Phyrexian language, custom designed by that special artist. I do plan on getting a second version of the Atraxa. So this non-foil version is going to be replaced later on. Back to the story. So this is the build. It's been long overdue. I couldn't figure out how I was going to build it because I tried to make it unique as possible. So I ended up finally able to make it my own version and work from there. So now what we are going to do is something a bit similar that I've been doing, which is lands first, and then the card choices are for enchantments, artifacts, instant sorceries, creatures, or planeswalkers. Mainly, it's made things easier for that way because there's not that much to talk about for lands, since you already know the options for them. For example, of like an Aramesa, Bloodstained Mire, Breeding Pool for a shock land, City Brass for the command tower, Flooded Strand. Yes, I got the basic lands, stained glass basics from the new set Dominaria United. I did partook in that event, and luckily I was able to get at least three copies of this basic land, of these basic lands, because they look so beautiful. So it's going to make things so much better for this build. Like Hollow Shrine, Hollow Fountain, they thought they had Triumph, Islands, really damn beautiful. I was lucky enough to get them in foil as well when I bought a couple of collectors. So yeah, we got some lucky ones, even like a foil that's Marsh Flats, and the Plains as well, the Polluted Delta, Ravines Tower, Scalding Tarn, Spara's Headquarters, the Swamps. So beautiful. I can't stand it sometimes. Then we have Temple Garden, Foiled Etch, Further Catacombs, Watery Grave, Windswept Heath, Foil, Wooded Foothills, and Saga Triumph. So we got like the tri-lands, the dual lands, the shocks, the fetches. You already know that's why I can't talk much about it, because it's already been easy to understand for it. Now, on to the actual decisions of the cards for the choices. So we're going to start off on creatures, because in my opinion, it's understandable to why for these commanders, for these specific cards, to me. So we have is the Birds of Paradise, just a good mana dork. It could be one of any. Surprising is not an elf, like an elf riding on the bird, but oh well. Next up we have Gaia's Age, which it's a really good, basically like a Gaia's Cradle, but with a +1/+1 counter theme, which this build is all about +1/+1s, -1/-1 counters, charge counters, time counters. You'll see most of those counter themes in this build for that particular reason. Next up we have Apatra, Vizier of Poisons, a good staple for any unique build of Apatras. So it's more of just getting into -1/-1 counters, putting them in, making snakes, and then proliferating them to be able to make more snakes. Sage of Hours, a decent creature that it can easily just be able to make that many extra turns for every 5 +1/+1 counters has been removed from it. So you can just build it, and then just swarm it off and get so many extra turns with this build. It's not even funny. Next up we have Evolution Sage, good landfall proliferate for that synergy. Then we got Ichor Rats. So now let's get actually into this. So my bad. Next up we got Nils, Discipline Enforcer. It's a really good politicking card, in my opinion, and a perfect staple for Atraxa. Because most builds, they try to go to make things easier. So what this does, you can just be like, okay, let me put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and this creature. Pump them up, and then use the proliferate on the end steps to proliferate off Atraxa, and then just go crazy with it. Just keep it going and not stop. And then if they try to attack you, they would have to pay the mana for each counter that is placed on that creature. So it really just makes things like your good Pillow Fort card staple for +1/+1 counter themes. Helps it out so much. Simic Manipulator will be the next card. This one is just more a +1/+1 counters on it, and then you proliferate. Normally, you don't want to worry about the evolve. So when you're able to get it off once, or any other way, which there is other ways to get +1/+1 counters on all the creatures, and then just proliferate the +1/+1s on my board. So this is a good card just to take away some of the key problems, like a Dreaded Magistrate or any card in particular, that it can really hose this commander deck very wrongly. Corpsejack Menace, decent card to double the +1/+1 counters that we'll be gaining off from putting them in. We double it, so it helps it out. Next up, we got the Fathom Mage. Fathom Mage, let's just admire this for a second. It's really beautiful. Beautiful artwork with the watermark Simic in there as a pre-release promo. It is so beautiful, in my opinion. I just can't stand it. So, back to this. As soon as the +1/+1 counters are put onto you, draw cards off of it. And no, there's no War Recoil Tower, because I rather be discarding them. Because there are times that you might be faced up against the build that's like, you take damage equaling to the number of cards in your hand, or if you have unlimited hand size, you could help out with Jessica's Wills and the whole 9 yards with that infinite combo loops it can produce. Next up, we have Odric, Lunatic Marshal. A very decent card to just give the titles of all the creatures like Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink. Give them to all of our creatures so we can gain insane amount of life. Like, the last time when I did this, I think I was able to make up to gaining about a 50 life per combat. Yeah. And now, this is where this deck is the most unique in my opinion. This is a type of a version that you really don't see often. Because you see a bunch of +1/+1 counter keys, cards like that you see in here, but the -1/-1s, charge counters, time counters, and everything like that. So when I did this build, I was like, why not if we can really set the time clock faster? And that's where the clones come in. Yeah, so we have the Phyrexian Metamorph, foil borderless off of the Double Masters, the original Double Masters, mind y'all. Yeah, so we got some clonings, including of like Sakashima and Spark Double. We got some cloning cards in here that can utilize the Atraxa, so we can make a bunch of copies of Atraxa to proliferate insane amount of times, and then just go crazy at the end when we build up an insane board with a bunch of +1/+1 counters on the creatures, and also -1/-1 to make more snakes, put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on it, double it, and you get the whole idea with this now. So next that we have is Spore Sour Thallid. It's a good spore card, fungus that just makes Saproling tokens. So we have a token generator in case that we don't get the necessary token generators that we may get just to make copies off of Atraxa. Then we got File Drake. File Drake really perfect for this build because it just puts the infect counter if it swings, and with flying in the air, and a pay for to proliferate. So yes, we do have the Ichor Rats, to which we can put the poison counters on everybody, including ourselves. But that is where you could be like, all right, let's try to end this game quickly. I'll cast Ichor Rats, give everyone a poison counter, and then with a bunch of like 9 or 10 copies of Atraxa, and then proliferate 9 to 10 times to kill everyone in one shot. Next up, we got Seaborn Muse. Decent card for the untapping shenanigans. Muldrotha Gravetide. Really the MVP card in this build, basically, for this creature pile. The main MVP. Because what it does, it allows you to play cards off of your graveyard for once of each type. So you can recast your sorcery from your graveyard, your instants, your artifacts and enchantments, and your creatures. It has to be one of those particular types per turn. But it allows you to recycle, so you can recycle your tutors and go crazy. Next up, we got these two ones, which are very interesting in my opinion, as to why you might be questioning on the card choices for these. But we got Elish Norn and Jin Cataxius. Elish Norn is just good just to get rid of problematic creatures, and then we can also clone Elish Norn to be able to get a bunch of creatures to remove any problematics. If we get enough copies, we can get rid of any problematic creature in existence, including Trolleys. Jin Cataxius is good just to reduce their resources and just advance ours even more. So that's the main reason for this build for the Jin Cataxius. It's still going to be questionable, but I understand it if that's still questionable to you guys. For our next section, we got sorceries. So we got Cataxian Probe. Really good card just to look at a player's hand. And we can even look at our own hand to draw a card. We don't have to look at our opponents if they don't have cards in their hands from Jin Cataxius. Ponder, a decent card. Really just a good staple for any of those cards, including Serum Visions. 3 main staples that you would normally see in CEDH decks. But you mainly want to go for the Ponder just to shuffle away the cards that you don't need and draw cards. Draw the Scry. Look at the player's hand. The draw to look through their strategy combos and take advantage of it. Then we got Demonic Tutor, which is our main, we do have a few tutors in here that's going to make things a bit easier. Then we got Explore to draw a card, and then put additional land into place so we can ramp. Rampant Growth to ramp. Cultivate to ramp more. Grim Tutor to tutor again. To tutor up in more cards. Kodama's Reach to ramp again. Diabolic Tutor, so we have another tutor in here. One-shot killer could be a Triumph of the Hordes. If someone is able to gain a bunch of life, then we could just go into Triumph of the Hordes and kill them with poison damage. Then we got Spinning Image to make even more copies in case that if we don't have enough copies of Atraxa, we can make even more. And with the Retrace, we can discard a land card and then just pay 6 to recast it. And keep doing it over and over and over again for as long as we have 6 mana and able to have lands in our hands. So this deck can go insane. It can go insane. It can go insane. It can go wide. It doesn't hold back for this build. Next up that we are going to be pulling up is Instants. So we have Brainstorm. Just a good utility card for CEDHs. Dark Ritual, fast mana ramp. Mental Misstep, just a good counterspell. If someone's trying to ramp ahead of us, we can just get rid of their ramp. Like a Soul Ring, just get rid of that. And then just not have that much to deal with. Path to Exile to remove any issues. To exile them. Then we got Silence to prevent our opponents from interrupting our boards or their turns, so we can go a little bit faster. It's the name of the game. Swan Song to counter their stuff. It's just a decent counter spell. Vampiric Tutor, a perfect, decent counter. decent one for the tutoring. Veil of Summer, just a good utility card to give ourselves the protections that we need. Cabal Ritual for the fast mana ramp, and even more mana to quickly go crazy if we have 7 or more in our graveyard. Counterspell to just counter something. Heroic Intervention to give ourselves hexproof and indestructible if we don't have any counterspell magic. We can, or if we tapped our lands wrong, which can happen in this build, you can just go Heroic Intervention and you should be fine. Mana Drain to counter the spell, and we get that many colorless mana that we don't even need to tap that many lands to use to get our spells and just bring out threat after threat after threat after threat after threat nonstop. Then we got Force of Negation. Really decent card to just counter what they have and then just exile it. Perplex, a very underrated counterspell in Dimir, in my opinion. Very underrated because it can counter it unless it's controlled discards their entire hand. And then it's just transmuted, which you can tutor up for a 3 or less, which makes it so much perfect. Force of Vigor, which we get rid of problematic artifacts or enchantments like stacks pieces or any of that type of issues to get rid of. Then we got Fuel for the Cause, which we can make it as punishing that if our opponent plays something, not only we can counter their stuff, but we can proliferate our own counters and go crazy. So we can go at a faster pace than we normally would, and then just go wide. And then just go wide with multiple variety of options to pull off and everything under the sun. Next up, what we're up to is artifacts. We have Everflowing Chalice. Mostly just to use it so we can have a bunch of proliferates in there. Get the charge counters going and just use it to pay off the commander tax off Atraxa, which is the main reason why Everflowing Chalice has been used in every Atraxa build. It's the main simple key card for all Atraxa builds because it just mostly just used to get for the commander tax, and you don't have to worry about it. Lotus Petal for the fast mana ramp. Soul Ring because it's Soul Ring. Arcane Signet because it's Arcane Signet. Helps out with the color varieties to fix our ramping issues if we don't pull them in time, and just makes things a bit easier for us. Lightning Greaves to give our Atraxa haste, to hexproof, and any other creature that we want to protect to make things easier for us. Helm of the Host, decent artifact to make our Atraxa copies non-legendary as well. If we don't have Spark Double or Sakashima, this is a good alternate option. And then just be able to make copies and just go crazy with it. Then we got another Pillar 4 card, which is under Norn's Annex. Norn's Annex, very underrated because you can just prevent them from attacking you unless they pay a white or 2 life. And if there are builds that are not in white color combination, they would have to pay life in order to attack you for each creature. So they would have, if they try to swing at you with 6 creatures, they would have to pay 12 life, which can be really taxing and a huge pain in the butt to figure out. Finally, we're on to the enchantments. These might seem peculiar to you guys, but it could be understandable as to why they are chosen. Retribution of the Ancients. Remove the +1/+1 counters to get rid of a threat, and then if we have a Patra out, we make a snake in the process. Helps out, and we can get rid of Mana Dorks as well. Sylvan Library, decent card to extra card draw, and then just mitigate on our decision to what cards we want to keep, what we're going to pay to keep, and in additions and all that. As foretold, this card is busted in a Atraxa build. With this build, as soon as you get up to 10 time counters, you can basically play every single thing in your hand once each turn for free. It's insane. It's insane on how powerful this card actually truly is on Atraxa builds. It's just a main staple for those. Then we have Growing Rights of Illamog, a second Gaia's Cradle, if you can say, on a budget instead of a Gaia Sage, which this card never gets used that often. It's just situational. If we don't get Gaia Sage, then we can use this as a substitute to create a bunch of tokens and make a bunch of green mana. Then we have Ristic Study, decent card to give us more card draw, fix the issues that we might lead to in the end. Leyline of Anticipation to give our stuff flash. So much perfect for it. Parallel Lives. So when we use Helm of the Host to make a copy of Atraxa that's not legendary, we can make 2 copies of it each time from just swinging with 1 commander. Then we got Cathar's Crusade. The moment that the token comes out, it pumps the whole board, and they can just pump even more, and then with Ineroxable Tide to just proliferate from every time we cast a spell. And that's from any spell. So instant sorceries, artifacts, enchantments, even creatures that we can just cast and then just proliferate and just go even more crazy. So that's the whole build for this Atraxa. In my honest opinion, this deck, as you guys are about to see, this will be we'll be having a created series for this called Blaine Saga. Haven't developed a name yet, but it's probably going to be Blaine Extravaganza. So what we're going to do is have some commanders that we're doing in deck tech stuff and try to foil them up. And each time we do that, we give the updates and we do that whole thing for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoy it. We'll be making sure that we have all of the things that we need. And making sure that we have all the cards that we needed and within the artworks that we want, because we want to make this deck beautiful and we're going to keep it to ourselves, right? So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Smash that like button if you enjoy this kind of a content. Comments for any suggestions you guys have, and then click subscribe, and if you haven't, and click on the bell to never miss a single video. Flamginzard here. I'm out.